A millionaire asks a homeless woman to pretend to be his fiancée, but when his mother finds out who she really is, hello, welcome, enjoy, subscribe, and activate notifications. The city skyline sparkled under the twilight as Alex Morgan closed the heavy mahogany doors of his penthouse office. Each step of his tailored shoes against the marble floor resonated with the weight of his calculated decisions. A man of power and precision, Alex was the embodiment of control. His name commanded respect in business circles, but beyond the sharp suits and multimillion-dollar contracts, there was a void he refused to acknowledge. Tonight, however, that carefully guarded isolation was threatened by a single phone call. As his phone buzzed insistently on the glass table, the name Grace Morgan illuminated the screen. He sighed, steeling himself for his mother's relentless insistence on his personal life. Alex. Her voice carried its usual blend of warmth and authority. It's time I meet this fiancé of yours. Weeks of fabricated stories and polite deflections unraveled in seconds. The lie, crafted in a moment of desperation to fend off her inquiries, now stood as a monumental obstacle. Grace's upcoming birthday gala, a glittering event promising a convergence of high society, was the stage she demanded for this introduction. Alex could practically hear the stakes in her tone, a mix of expectation and unspoken doubt. Of course, mother, he replied with the calmness that had earned him his reputation. Hanging up, Alex leaned back, his gaze tracing the city lights as they blurred into abstract patterns. The impeccable order of his life was on the brink of chaos. The following evening found Alex navigating the bustling streets, seeking the anonymity of the city's heart. Walking aimlessly had become a rare indulgence, a fleeting escape from his calculated world. Turning a corner, he nearly collided with a young woman seated on the curb, her shoulders hunched and her face hidden beneath a cascade of auburn hair. Mia Carter. Her name wasn't yet known to him, but her presence would soon upend everything. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks, catching the neon glow of the nearby cafe sign. Alex paused, instinct urging him to walk away, yet something about her vulnerability rooted him to the spot. Are you all right? His voice, though measured, carried a hint of genuine concern. Startled, Mia glanced up, her green eyes brimming with raw emotion. For a moment, she hesitated, as if gauging whether to trust a stranger in an immaculate suit. No, she admitted softly, the single word laden with a depth that piqued Alex's curiosity. He gestured toward the cafe. Let me buy you a coffee. Reluctantly, she followed, the prospect of warmth and company outweighing her caution. Over steaming cups of espresso, fragments of her story emerged. A promising photography career derailed by a scandal that painted her as manipulative and deceitful. Her despair mirrored Alex's concealed loneliness, though she had yet to mask hers behind an impenetrable facade. By the time their conversation ended, an idea had crystallized in Alex's mind. It was audacious, even absurd, yet it aligned with his penchant for calculated risks. Mia, he began, his tone shifting to one of businesslike precision. I have a proposition for you. Her brows knit together, suspicion flickering across her face. Go on, she said warily. I need a fiancé, he declared, the directness of his words catching her off guard. Before she could protest, he elaborated. This is purely an arrangement. You'll attend a few events, meet some people, and in return, I'll ensure you have the means to rebuild your career. His offer hung in the air, a lifeline wrapped in ambiguity. Mia studied him, weighing the gravity of his words. Her instinct screamed caution, but the lure of opportunity, paired with his unwavering composure, was compelling. And what do you gain from this? She challenged, a spark of defiance lighting her features. Alex's lips curved into a faint smile, an escape from familial scrutiny, a mutually beneficial arrangement. The terms were clear, devoid of pretense. Yet beneath the practicality lay unspoken complexities neither was prepared to face. After a prolonged silence, Mia nodded, the decision born from equal parts desperation and curiosity. All right, Mr. Morgan, you have a deal. As they parted ways, Alex returned to his penthouse with a rare sense of unease. His carefully curated life had taken an unexpected turn, one that promised both complications and intrigue. Mia, too, felt the weight of her choice as she walked home, her mind racing with what this arrangement would entail. Neither realized that this agreement, born from necessity, would unravel the very walls they had spent years constructing. The morning sunlight filtered through the sprawling windows of Alex's penthouse, illuminating the sleek lines of furniture that reflected his disciplined lifestyle. Alex sat at his desk, sifting through the details of the arrangement he had proposed the previous night. Contracts, timelines, appearances, every element had to be flawless. He was a man who left nothing to chance. The faint echo of hesitation in Mia's voice lingered in his mind, but Alex dismissed it as irrelevant. This was a transaction, a temporary arrangement to preserve his autonomy. Yet, for reasons he couldn't pinpoint, her vulnerability continued to haunt him. Mia, on the other hand, woke up to a whirlwind of thoughts. The cramped apartment she called home felt even smaller as her mind replayed Alex's proposal. Could she trust him? The memory of her scandal was a persistent ghost, whispering doubts about whether stepping into the public eye again was wise. Her past had been a lesson in the brutality of exposure. A professor's unrequited advances had spiraled into accusations that ruined her credibility and shattered her dreams. The world had been quick to judge her, branding her as the villain of a story she hadn't written. That morning, as she scrolled through her phone, the headlines from years ago resurfaced in her mind. Student photographer's scandalous climb to the top and Mia Carter. Seduction or strategy? Her fingers hovered over the screen before she tossed the phone aside, burying her face in her hands. Accepting Alex's deal meant facing that scrutiny again, but it also offered a chance for redemption, a way to reclaim her narrative. When her phone buzzed with a text from Alex, her decision solidified. Meet me at the Morgan Enterprises lobby, 1 p.m. sharp. We'll finalize everything. Walking into Morgan Enterprises felt like entering another world. The lobby buzzed with efficiency, the air tinged with an air of exclusivity. Mia clutched her worn satchel, acutely aware of her simple attire amidst the tailored suits that surrounded her. When Alex emerged from the elevator, he exuded the same commanding presence she had seen the night before, his expression unreadable. "Miss Carter," he greeted, his voice as composed as ever. "Follow me." They ascended to his office, where the skyline stretched endlessly beyond the glass walls. The room mirrored his persona, minimalist, yet powerful. Seated across from him, Mia felt the weight of his scrutiny as he slid a contract toward her. "This outlines the terms," Alex explained. "You'll be compensated generously, and I'll cover your living expenses for the duration of our arrangement. In return, you'll be available for public appearances and a few key family events." Mia skimmed the document, her heart pounding as she absorbed the implications. "And when this is over?" she asked. Alex leaned back, his gaze steady. "You walk away with no strings attached, and the means to rebuild your life." Mia hesitated, the pen in her hand trembling slightly. Her mind wrestled with the implications of this agreement. Signing it meant tethering herself to Alex's world, but it also meant confronting her fears and reclaiming her place in society. With a deep breath, she signed her name, the sound of pen on paper echoing like a finality. Alex nodded, sliding the contract back into his briefcase. "Good. We'll start immediately. Your first appearance will be at a charity gala this weekend." His tone left no room for argument, but his eyes lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary, as if trying to gauge her resolve. As Mia exited the building, clutching the contract, she felt both exhilarated and apprehensive. Alex's world was a stark contrast to her own, and she wondered if she could truly navigate it. Meanwhile, Alex returned to his work, his thoughts briefly straying to Mia's hesitant smile. He dismissed it as inconsequential, yet something about her stirred a long-buried part of him. He refused to examine it closely. This was a business arrangement, and emotions had no place in it. But the faint echo of her determination lingered in his mind, as if whispering that this arrangement was far from ordinary. That night, Mia sat in her apartment, reading through the contract again. Its stark language outlined a transaction, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something much larger. as she glanced at the modest photos on her wall, remnants of her once promising career. She resolved to make this opportunity count. Whatever Alex's reasons, she would use this chance to rebuild, to rise from the ashes of her past. Unbeknownst to both of them, the deal they had struck would unravel truths about themselves neither was ready to face, setting the stage for a collision of past and future. The grand ballroom of the Conrad estate gleamed with polished opulence as Mia Carter stepped into a world she had only seen in magazines. Crystal chandeliers cascaded soft light across the room, their sparkle mirrored by the glint of champagne flutes held by impeccably dressed guests. For Mia, the sight was both awe-inspiring and suffocating. Alex stood beside her, his expression as composed as ever, offering a calm reassurance that did little to soothe the storm within her. "Smile," he murmured under his breath, leaning closer as they made their entrance. "They can smell fear." Mia plastered on a confident expression, though every nerve screamed to retreat. The weight of dozens of eyes fell upon her, scrutinizing every inch of her borrowed gown and carefully styled hair. Alex's hand rested lightly on her lower back, a calculated gesture that lent an air of intimacy to their charade. As they moved through the crowd, exchanging polite nods and handshakes, Mia couldn't help but feel like a butterfly pinned to a board. Each greeting was a silent interrogation, the smiles hiding daggers of doubt. The glittering crowd wasn't just evaluating her, they were searching for cracks in the facade. At the heart of the room stood Grace Morgan, regal and commanding in an emerald green gown. Her sharp eyes surveyed the gathering like a queen presiding over her court. When her gaze fell on Mia, a flicker of curiosity crossed her face before it hardened into polite disinterest. "Mother," Alex said smoothly as they approached, his tone light but guarded. "This is Mia." Grace's smile didn't reach her eyes as she extended a hand. "So, you're the woman who's captured my son's attention," she said, her voice laced with subtle challenge. Mia shook her hand, her grip firm despite the nerves twisting in her stomach. "It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Morgan," Mia replied, keeping her tone even. Grace's gaze lingered, as though searching for something beneath Mia's poised exterior. "You have an unusual background for someone in Alex's life," she remarked, her words a carefully veiled jab. Alex intervened swiftly. "Mia is incredibly talented," he said, his tone cool but definitive. "Her work speaks for itself." Grace arched an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "We shall see," she said simply, before turning her attention to a nearby guest, dismissing Mia with practiced ease. The encounter left Mia shaken, though she kept her composure as Alex guided her to a quieter corner of the room. "She's testing you," he said softly, his expression unreadable. "Don't take it personally." Mia's eyes flashed with indignation. "Testing me? I'm not some chess piece to be moved around." Alex's gaze softened imperceptibly, though his voice remained pragmatic. "You agreed to this. That means facing people like her. Are you ready for that?" The question hung between them, a challenge that ignited Mia's determination. "I'm here, aren't I?" she retorted, her tone steady despite the storm brewing inside her. The evening progressed with a relentless parade of introductions and subtle interrogations. Mia managed to navigate most of them with a blend of charm and resolve, though the undercurrent of skepticism remained palpable. Alex, ever the consummate strategist, provided support in subtle ways, a well-timed compliment here, a deflection there. Despite their differences, they worked as a seamless unit, their partnership convincing enough to draw begrudging acceptance from some of the crowd. Yet, Mia couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider, a performer in a role that wasn't her own. As the night drew to a close, Alex led Mia to the balcony overlooking the estate's gardens. The cool night air was a welcome relief after hours of scrutiny. For a moment, they stood in silence, the tension of the evening dissipating in the gentle rustle of leaves. "You did well," Alex said finally, his voice low. Mia turned to him, her expression a mix of exhaustion and defiance. "Is this what your life is always like?" she asked, her tone tinged with disbelief. Alex's smile was faint, almost bitter. "It's the cost of success. You learn to live with it." Mia studied him, the mask of control he wore slipping just enough to reveal a glimpse of something deeper, loneliness, perhaps, or a weariness he rarely allowed others to see. Maybe you shouldn't, she said quietly. Alex looked at her, a flicker of surprise crossing his features before he composed himself. Easier said than done, he replied, his tone neutral. But Mia's words lingered, an unexpected echo in the carefully ordered world he had constructed. As they returned to the ballroom for their final farewells, neither realized how much the night had already begun to shift the fragile boundaries of their agreement. The following week, the city was abuzz with whispers of Alex Morgan's fiancée. Gossip columns praised Mia's understated elegance, though some speculated about her mysterious past. For Mia, the spotlight was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gave her a platform she hadn't imagined reclaiming. On the other, it threatened to pull her back into the shadows of her scandal. She spent hours rehearsing her role, under Alex's meticulous guidance, preparing for the next event that would further cement their charade. But despite their careful planning, life has a way of unraveling even the most calculated schemes. Their next public appearance was at the Mayfair Charity Gala, a glittering event attended by the city's elite. The venue was grander than Mia had imagined, with vaulted ceilings and walls adorned with priceless art. As they walked in arm, the room seemed apart for Alex, his presence commanding respect. Mia matched his stride, her confidence growing with each step. This time, the whispers weren't about whether she belonged but about how seamlessly she seemed to fit into Alex's world. Yet, beneath the surface, tension brewed. Midway through the evening, while Alex was engaged in a conversation with a prominent investor, Mia found herself cornered by a sharply dressed man with a predatory smile. "Mia Carter," he said, his voice dripping with mock familiarity. "I didn't expect to see you here." Her stomach dropped as she recognized him. Ethan Turner, a journalist who had covered the university scandal in ruthless detail. "Ethan," she said coolly, masking her unease. "I'm surprised you remember me." He laughed, a sound that sent a chill down her spine. "How could I forget? You were quite the headline back then." Mia's pulse quickened as Ethan leaned in, his tone turning conspiratorial. "I couldn't help but wonder how someone with your history landed Alex Morgan. A stroke of luck? Or something more calculated?" His insinuation was like a blade, cutting through her carefully maintained composure. Before she could respond, Alex appeared at her side, his expression calm but his eyes steely. "Ethan," he said smoothly, extending a hand. "I didn't realize you'd made it onto the guest list." Ethan's smile faltered under Alex's intense gaze. "Just doing my job, Alex," he replied, retreating under the weight of Alex's silent warning. As Ethan disappeared into the crowd, Mia turned to Alex, her facade crumbling. "He knows," she whispered, her voice trembling. Alex placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "Let him speculate. He has no proof, and even if he did, it wouldn't change anything." But Mia wasn't convinced. The encounter had dredged up old fears, reminding her how easily the past could resurface and threaten everything she was trying to rebuild. For the rest of the evening, she played her role flawlessly, but the weight of her interaction with Ethan lingered. The drive home was silent, tension thick between them. As they stepped into Alex's penthouse, Mia finally broke the silence. "This isn't going to work," she said, her voice firm despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm her. Alex turned to her, his expression unreadable. "What are you talking about?" She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "Ethan's right. People like me don't belong in your world. It's only a matter of time before they tear me apart again." Alex's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "You're stronger than you think, Mia. And this arrangement, our arrangement, isn't about fitting in. It's about rising above." Mia shook her head, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "That's easy for you to say. You've never had to prove your worth to people who've already made up their minds about you." Alex stepped closer, his voice taking on a rare softness. "You think I haven't faced judgment? Assumptions? My success didn't come without sacrifices, Mia. The difference is, I didn't let their opinions define me." His words struck a chord, but the doubts in Mia's mind refused to dissipate. "This isn't just about opinions, Alex," she said quietly. "It's about survival." For the first time, Alex saw the depth of Mia's fear, the vulnerability she tried so hard to hide. He realized that their arrangement had placed her in the line of fire, exposing her to a world that thrived on scrutiny. "If you want to walk away, I won't stop you," he said finally, his voice heavy with unspoken regret. "But if you stay, I promise you won't face it alone." The sincerity in his words caught Mia off guard, and for a moment, the walls she had built around herself threatened to crumble. Mia looked at him, searching his face for any trace of pretense. What she saw wasn't the cold, calculating businessman she had first met, but a man willing to stand beside her, despite the risks. "I'll stay," she said softly, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her. "But I need you to understand that this isn't easy for me." Alex nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I do." The moment marked a shift in their dynamic, a fragile truce born from mutual understanding. Yet, neither could deny the storm that loomed on the horizon, promising challenges neither of them could anticipate. The days following the charity gala were a whirlwind of preparations for Alex and Mia's next appearance, a high-profile fundraiser hosted by one of Alex's most influential business partners. Despite the growing media fascination with their relationship, the encounter with Ethan Turner had left Mia on edge. She couldn't shake the feeling that her past was creeping closer, like a shadow waiting to consume the fragile sense of stability she had begun to build. Alex, sensing her unease, doubled down on his efforts to guide her, but his practical advice often clashed with Mia's raw emotions. In the midst of this tension, Alex introduced Mia to another important figure in his life, Daniel Harrington, his longtime friend and personal lawyer. Daniel was sharp-eyed and charismatic, his demeanor exuding both intelligence and charm. He greeted Mia warmly, his curiosity evident. "So, you're the one keeping Alex grounded," he said with a teasing smile, eliciting a rare smirk from Alex. Mia appreciated Daniel's easygoing nature, which provided a welcome reprieve from the weight of her arrangement with Alex. Yet, beneath Daniel's charm lay a sharp mind that missed nothing. As they discussed the details of the fundraiser, Daniel pulled Alex aside for a private conversation. "She's convincing," Daniel remarked, his tone carefully neutral. "But are you sure this is a good idea?" Alex's expression hardened slightly. "It's not about good or bad ideas, Daniel. It's about control." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Control? Or something else?" Alex shot him a warning look, but Daniel pressed on. "Look, I've known you long enough to see when something's getting under your skin. Just make sure you're not letting emotions cloud your judgment." Meanwhile, Mia found herself bonding with Sophie Lang, Alex's executive assistant. Sophie, a sharp-witted woman with a knack for reading people, was one of the few individuals Alex trusted implicitly. She approached Mia with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You've got your work cut out for you," Sophie said with a knowing smile. "This world isn't kind to newcomers, especially ones without a pedigree." Mia appreciated Sophie's candor, finding a tentative ally in her. "I'm not trying to fit in," Mia replied honestly. "I just want to survive." Sophie studied her for a moment before nodding. "Fair enough. But if you're going to stand by Alex, you'll need more than survival instincts. This isn't just about appearances, it's about playing the game. And trust me, everyone here is playing." Mia absorbed Sophie's words, realizing that Alex's world wasn't just about wealth and power. It was a battlefield of alliances and rivalries. As the fundraiser approached, she resolved to learn the rules, no matter how uncomfortable it made her. The night of the fundraiser arrived, and the stakes felt higher than ever. The venue, a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city, was a dazzling display of wealth and influence. Mia had spent hours preparing, her dress and demeanor carefully curated to project confidence. As they entered the grand hall, Alex leaned in, his voice low. "Remember, appearances matter. Stay close to me, and don't let anyone rattle you." His words were both a warning and a reassurance, a reminder of the tightrope they were walking together. As the evening unfolded, Mia encountered a mix of curiosity and skepticism from the other guests. Some were charmed by her authenticity, while others dismissed her as a temporary distraction for Alex. Despite the pressure, Mia held her ground, drawing on the strength she had discovered within herself. Alex, too, was impressed by her composure, though he masked it with his usual calm detachment. Together, they navigated the evening with a precision that left little room for doubt, at least on the surface. However, not everyone was convinced. Victoria Hayes, a socialite with a long-standing interest in Alex, approached Mia with thinly veiled hostility. "So, you're the famous fiancé," Victoria said, her tone dripping with condescension. "I must admit, I didn't expect Alex to settle down, especially not with someone unconventional." Mia met Victoria's gaze, refusing to flinch. "Sometimes, unconventional is exactly what's needed," she replied, her voice steady. The subtle exchange of barbs didn't go unnoticed by Alex, who stepped in with a pointed remark that left Victoria retreating in frustration. As the night drew to a close, Alex and Mia found themselves on the mansion's terrace, overlooking the sprawling gardens. The tension of the evening had begun to ebb, replaced by a tentative sense of accomplishment. "You handled yourself well tonight," Alex said, his voice carrying a note of approval. Mia smiled faintly, her exhaustion tempered by pride. "I'm starting to understand how this world works," she admitted. Alex's gaze softened as he regarded her. "Good. But remember, it's not about becoming like them. It's about finding your own way to win." For the first time, Mia saw a glimpse of vulnerability in Alex's otherwise impenetrable exterior. The walls he had built around himself, much like her own, were beginning to show cracks. As they stood in the moonlit silence, a new understanding passed between them, a fragile connection forged in the crucible of their shared challenges. Yet, neither could ignore the looming presence of their pasts, threatening to unravel everything they were trying to build. The days following the fundraiser settled into an uneasy rhythm. Alex and Mia's public appearances became more frequent, their performances polished and seamless. Yet beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. The pressures of their arrangement, coupled with the ever-watchful eyes of society, began to weigh heavily on both of them. For Alex, maintaining control had always been second nature, but Mia's presence was unsettling in ways he hadn't anticipated. Her resilience challenged his carefully constructed detachment, and it was becoming harder to ignore the growing connection between them. Mia, too, was grappling with a mix of emotions. Despite her initial reservations, she found herself drawn to Alex, not just for his strength and confidence, but for the glimpses of vulnerability he rarely let anyone see. Yet, her growing feelings were tempered by a persistent fear, the fear that her past would surface and shatter the fragile foundation of their arrangement. That fear materialized one morning when a thick envelope arrived at Alex's office, its contents sparking a chain of events neither of them could control. Inside the envelope was a collection of photographs and documents, each meticulously curated to expose Mia's university scandal. There were grainy images of her with her former professor, along with fabricated emails that painted her as a manipulative schemer. Alex stared at the contents, his expression unreadable, but the tension in his jaw betrayed his anger. He called Daniel immediately, his voice cold and sharp. "I want to know who sent this," he said, handing the envelope to his lawyer. Daniel examined the contents, his frown deepening. "Someone wants to discredit her, and by extension, you," he said. "This is calculated." When Alex confronted Mia with the envelope later that evening, she froze. The sight of the photos was like a punch to the gut, dredging up memories she had fought to bury. "It's not true," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "None of it is true." Alex's gaze softened slightly, but his tone remained firm. "I believe you," he said. The words were unexpected, and they caught Mia off guard. "You do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex nodded. "I've seen enough to know when something doesn't add up. But this isn't just about you anymore. Whoever sent this is trying to undermine us." The revelation forced Mia to confront the reality of their situation. The arrangement that had once seemed like a lifeline now felt like a prison, each step forward dragging her deeper into a web of scrutiny and manipulation. "I should have told you," she said finally, her voice filled with regret. "About the scandal, about everything." Alex shook his head. "You didn't owe me that," he said, surprising her with his candor. "But now that it's out there, we need to face it together." The following day, Daniel's investigation uncovered the source of the envelope, Victoria Hayes. The revelation wasn't entirely surprising, given her hostility toward Mia at the fundraiser, but it added a new layer of complexity to their situation. Confronting Victoria would risk further exposure, but ignoring her would embolden her to escalate. Alex, ever the strategist, decided on a calculated approach. "We'll let her know we're aware," he told Daniel, "but we won't play into her hands. She thrives on attention." Mia, however, struggled to reconcile Alex's calm demeanor with the storm raging inside her. She couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness, the sense that her life was once again spiraling out of her control. In a rare moment of vulnerability, she confided in Sophie, who listened patiently before offering her perspective. "You're stronger than you think, Mia," Sophie said, "but strength doesn't mean doing everything alone. Let Alex fight for you. He's better at this game than anyone." Sophie's words resonated with Mia, but they also highlighted a deeper truth, her reluctance to trust Alex completely. Despite his assurances, a part of her still feared that he saw her as a liability, a temporary problem to be managed. That fear came to a head during a tense conversation between Alex and Grace. When Grace learned of the photos, her disapproval was immediate and cutting. "This is exactly what I warned you about," she said, her tone icy. "Mia's past is a liability, Alex. You can't afford this kind of distraction." Alex's response was swift and unequivocal. "Mia isn't a liability," he said firmly. "She's part of my life, and I won't let anyone dictate how I live it. Not even you." The words surprised even him, but they left no room for argument. Grace's expression darkened, but she said nothing more, retreating with a haughty silence that spoke volumes. For Mia, who had overheard the exchange from the hallway, Alex's defense was a revelation. It was the first time she truly felt like he was on her side, not just as a partner in their arrangement, but as someone who cared. That night, as they sat in the quiet of Alex's penthouse, Mia found herself opening up in a way she hadn't before. She told him everything about the professor, the scandal, and the years she had spent trying to rebuild her life. Alex listened intently, his expression thoughtful but not judgmental. When she finished, he leaned forward, his voice steady. "They tried to break you," he said, "but they didn't. That's what matters." For the first time in years, Mia felt a sense of hope. The past might have cast a long shadow, but with Alex by her side, she began to believe that it didn't have to define her future. Yet, as they sat together, a quiet understanding passing between them, neither could shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of the battle. The storm was far from over, and the secrets they had uncovered were only the surface of a much deeper truth. The air in Alex's penthouse was charged with a newfound intimacy after Mia's confession. Though the shadows of her past loomed large, a fragile trust had taken root between them. Yet, trust was a luxury neither could afford for long. The storm Mia feared seemed to gather with every passing day, its edges fraying their arrangement and threatening to upend the delicate balance they had struck. Their next public engagement, a high-profile dinner hosted by a key investor in Alex's latest venture, promised to be another trial by fire. The guest list included not only allies but also skeptics who had long questioned Alex's choices, both in business and now, in his personal life. The pressure was palpable as Alex and Mia prepared for the evening. Mia, clad in an elegant midnight blue gown chosen under Sophie's discerning eye, felt the weight of her role more keenly than ever. "Remember," Alex said as they stepped into the car, his voice low but steady. "We're in this together." The dinner unfolded in a lavish dining hall where the sound of crystal glasses and polite conversation formed a polished facade. Alex moved through the room with his usual confidence, introducing Mia to key figures and deflecting subtle inquiries with practiced ease. For the most part, Mia held her own, drawing on the lessons Alex had drilled into her. Yet, as the evening progressed, a familiar face emerged from the crowd, Ethan Turner. His presence sent a jolt through Mia, though she concealed it behind a polite smile. Ethan wasted no time making his move, cornering Mia near the ornate bar. "You clean up well," he said, his tone dripping with insincerity. "But I wonder, does Alex know the full story?" Mia stiffened, her pulse quickening. Whatever story you're chasing, Ethan, it's not here, she said, her voice firm. Ethan's smile widened, a predator sensing weakness. Oh, I think it is. You see, scandals make for excellent headlines, and the public loves a redemption arc. Real or fabricated. Before Mia could respond, Alex appeared beside her, his expression cold and unyielding. Ethan, he said, his tone clipped. If you have something to say it now. Otherwise, I suggest you leave. Ethan hesitated, caught off guard by Alex's directness. I'm just doing my job, he said finally, though his retreat was swift. Once he was gone, Alex turned to Mia, his gaze softening. Are you all right? She nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. I will be, she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. The encounter with Ethan was a reminder of how precarious their situation had become. As the dinner progressed, Mia noticed a shift in the atmosphere. Whispers rippled through the room, subtle glances exchanged between guests. It wasn't until Sophie discreetly approached Alex that the source of the tension became clear. There's a story breaking online, she said in a low voice. It's about Mia and the photos. Alex's jaw tightened, his mind racing. Who leaked it? Sophie shook her head. I'm not sure yet, but it's spreading fast. Alex excused himself and Mia from the gathering, their departure polite but hurried. In the car, the tension was suffocating. Mia stared out the window, her thoughts a chaotic swirl of fear and anger. This is what I was afraid of, she said finally, her voice breaking. Alex reached for her hand, his grip firm. We'll handle it, he said, his tone resolute. But Mia pulled away, her frustration spilling over. You don't understand, Alex. This isn't just about you or your reputation. This is my life, my name. I can't keep fighting ghosts. When they arrived at the penthouse, Alex wasted no time calling Daniel. Shut it down, he ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. Daniel assured him they would do everything possible to contain the damage, but the uncertainty hung heavily in the air. Meanwhile, Mia retreated to her room, the weight of the evening pressing down on her. She felt like a pawn in a game she didn't understand, her every move scrutinized and manipulated. The next morning brought another blow. Despite Daniel's efforts, the story had gained traction, the headlines brimming with insinuations about Mia's past and her relationship with Alex. Grace Morgan arrived unannounced, her disapproval evident. This is exactly the kind of distraction I warned you about, she said, her tone cutting. Your judgment is slipping, Alex. But Alex, unyielding as ever, defended Mia. This isn't her fault, he said, his voice firm. And I won't let anyone, family or not, tear her down. Mia, who overheard the confrontation, felt a mix of gratitude and guilt. As much as Alex's defense buoyed her spirits, it also deepened her sense of responsibility for the chaos that surrounded them. That evening, as they sat in the quiet of the living room, she broke the silence. Maybe you should end this, she said softly. Alex looked at her, his expression unreadable. Is that what you want? He asked. Mia hesitated, her heart aching with the weight of her words. No, she admitted. But maybe it's what you need. Alex's response was immediate, his voice firm but tinged with emotion. What I need is for you to trust me, he said. This isn't just about appearances anymore, Mia. I'm not letting you face this alone. His words hung in the air, a declaration that blurred the lines of their arrangement. For the first time, Mia allowed herself to hope, not just for survival, but for something more. Yet, as they faced the storm together, neither could ignore the undeniable truth. They had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The fallout from the scandal was swift and unrelenting. The headlines dissected every detail of Mia's past, spinning new narratives from fragments of truth. Social media was a battleground of opinions, some lauding her bravery for enduring, others vilifying her as an opportunist. For Alex, the situation was a strategic nightmare, threatening to undermine not just his personal life, but also his business empire. Investors were growing restless, and board members questioned his judgment. Yet, amidst the chaos, Alex remained steadfast, shielding Mia as best he could. Mia, however, struggled under the weight of public scrutiny. The whispers that had once been confined to private conversations were now amplified on a global stage. Everywhere she turned, there were reminders of her tarnished reputation. Alex's penthouse, once a haven, now felt like a gilded cage. She spent hours pacing, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. When Alex found her one evening, standing on the balcony and staring out at the city, her expression was one of quiet despair. "You don't have to fight this alone," he said softly, stepping closer. But Mia shook her head, her voice barely audible. "It doesn't feel like I'm fighting at all. It feels like I'm drowning." Despite her doubts, Mia resolved to confront her fears head-on. With Alex's encouragement, she agreed to a carefully controlled interview, her chance to reclaim the narrative. Alex enlisted the help of a trusted PR expert, Elena Vargas, a sharp-tongued strategist who had salvaged reputations far more damaged than Mia's. "This isn't just about telling your story," Elena explained during their first meeting. "It's about owning it. If you can do that, they'll have no choice but to listen." Mia nodded, though the thought of exposing her vulnerabilities to the world made her stomach churn. The day of the interview arrived, and Alex stayed by Mia's side as they entered the studio. The lights were blinding, and the cameras felt like unrelenting eyes, prying into every corner of her soul. The interviewer, a seasoned journalist named Clara Mason, was known for her incisive questions. Yet, her demeanor was unexpectedly warm as she began. "Mia, thank you for being here," Clara said, her voice gentle. "There's been a lot said about you recently. What would you like people to know?" Mia took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I'd like them to know the truth," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. She recounted the events of the scandal, how her professor's advances had been misconstrued, how her refusal to comply had spiraled into false accusations. Her voice wavered as she described the isolation and humiliation she had endured, but she pressed on, her resolve growing with each word. "I made mistakes," she admitted, "but I never compromised my integrity, and I won't let those mistakes define me." As the interview progressed, Clara shifted the focus to Mia's relationship with Alex. "You've faced a lot of scrutiny as a couple," Clara said. "What do you say to those who doubt your intentions?" Mia hesitated, her gaze flickering to Alex, who gave her a reassuring nod. "I can't control what people think," Mia said finally, "but I can control how I live my life. And the truth is, Alex has been my greatest supporter through all of this. I'm lucky to have him." The admission felt like a weight lifting off her chest, even as it exposed her to further judgment. The interview aired later that evening, sparking a firestorm of reactions. While many applauded Mia's courage, others remained skeptical, their opinions unmoved. Yet, amidst the noise, a surprising ally emerged. Grace Morgan, who had long viewed Mia as a threat, called Alex the next morning. "She's stronger than I gave her credit for," Grace admitted grudgingly. "But strength alone won't protect her. If you're serious about this, you need to be prepared to fight, for her and with her." Alex was taken aback by his mother's change in tone, but he didn't question it. Instead, he turned his focus to protecting Mia from the next wave of challenges. Together, they crafted a plan to counteract the negative press, using their public appearances to showcase their unity. Meanwhile, Elena worked behind the scenes, leveraging the momentum from the interview to secure opportunities that would help Mia rebuild her career. However, the calm was short-lived. A new leak surfaced, this time targeting Alex. Documents from a confidential business deal were published online, painting him as ruthless and unethical. The timing was too convenient to be a coincidence. "Someone is orchestrating this," Daniel said during a tense meeting at the penthouse. "They're not just after Mia, they're after both of you." Alex's expression darkened, his mind racing. "Whoever it is, they've underestimated us," he said. "We'll find them." As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, Mia realized the stakes were higher than she had imagined. This wasn't just about her past or Alex's reputation. It was a coordinated attack designed to destroy them both. The realization fueled her determination, igniting a fire she hadn't felt in years. "They think they can break us," she said to Alex one night, her voice steady. "But they're wrong." For Alex, Mia's resilience was both inspiring and humbling. He had entered this arrangement expecting a business transaction, but it had become something far more personal. As they stood together, facing the storm that threatened to consume them, Alex made a silent vow. He would do whatever it took to protect her, even if it meant confronting the parts of himself he had long kept buried. Yet, as they prepared for the battles ahead, neither could anticipate the final twist, a revelation that would force them to question everything they thought they knew about their enemies, their pasts, and each other. The attack on Alex and Mia's reputations had escalated beyond anything they had anticipated. As the media frenzy continued, Daniel's investigation into the source of the leaks unearthed a shocking discovery. The attacks weren't coming from Victoria Hayes or Ethan Turner, as they had suspected. Instead, the trail led back to someone within Alex's own circle. The betrayal was a blow that reverberated through the carefully built walls of trust and loyalty surrounding Alex's life. The morning Daniel revealed the findings, Alex and Mia sat in tense silence in the penthouse conference room. "It's someone close to you," Daniel said, sliding a file across the table. "We traced the documents to an internal account at Morgan Enterprises. The encryption is sophisticated, but it's clear that whoever's behind this has access to your private systems." Alex's expression was a mask of calm, but his clenched fists betrayed his anger. "Do you have a name?" he asked, his voice like ice. Daniel hesitated. "Not yet, but we're close." Mia, sitting beside Alex, felt her heart sink. She had seen the loyalty Alex inspired in his employees and allies, and the thought of betrayal from within was almost unthinkable. "Who would do this?" she asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Daniel's reply was grim. "Someone who stands to gain from your downfall, or someone with a grudge." The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation pressing down on them. Over the next few days, Alex and Mia worked tirelessly to maintain their public image while Daniel and Sophie delved deeper into the investigation. Tensions ran high, and the strain began to show in their interactions. One evening, as Alex reviewed security logs in his office, Mia approached him hesitantly. "You've barely said a word all day," she said softly. "This isn't just business anymore, is it?" Alex looked up, his expression tired but resolute. "No," he admitted. "This is personal." Mia sat across from him, her gaze searching his face. "Do you think it could be someone you trust?" she asked. Alex hesitated, the question cutting deeper than he wanted to admit. "I don't know," he said finally. "But if it is, they'll regret it." The cold determination in his voice sent a shiver down Mia's spine. For the first time, she glimpsed the ruthlessness that had made Alex so successful and so feared. The breakthrough came late one night when Sophie called Alex with a lead. "I've narrowed it down to 3 suspects," she said. "But there's one name that stands out. Harrison Wells." The name hit Alex like a thunderbolt. Harrison had been a trusted advisor for years, a key figure in several of Alex's most successful ventures. The thought of betrayal from someone so close was almost incomprehensible. "Are you certain?" Alex asked, his voice dangerously calm. Sophie sighed. "Not completely, but the evidence points strongly in his direction." Alex wasted no time confronting Harrison. The meeting took place in a secluded corner of Morgan Enterprises, away from prying eyes. Harrison, a man in his late 40s with a polished demeanor, greeted Alex with his usual charm. But as Alex presented the evidence, that charm quickly evaporated. "You've been working against me," Alex said, his voice low but filled with steel. Harrison's expression shifted, a flicker of guilt crossing his features before he composed himself. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said smoothly. But Alex wasn't fooled. "I trusted you," he said, his tone edged with betrayal. "And you used that trust to try to destroy me." Harrison's mask finally cracked. "You don't understand," he said, his voice rising. "You think you're untouchable, Alex, but you're not. People like you don't get to dictate the rules forever." The admission was all Alex needed. He left the meeting with a renewed determination to dismantle Harrison's network and protect everything he had built. But as he returned to the penthouse and relayed the confrontation to Mia, he couldn't shake the sting of betrayal. For Mia, the revelations brought a mix of emotions. She felt a growing respect for Alex's resilience, but also a deepening fear of the world they inhabited. a world where loyalty was fleeting and trust was a luxury. That night, as they sat together on the penthouse balcony, Mia voiced the question that had been weighing on her. "Do you ever wonder if this fight is worth it?" she asked. Alex turned to her, his gaze unwavering. "Every day," he admitted. "But walking away would mean letting them win. And I don't lose." The words resonated with Mia, reigniting the fire that had driven her to agree to the arrangement in the first place. She realized that, despite the challenges, she wasn't ready to give up. Together, they began to piece together a plan, not just to counter the attacks, but to turn the tide in their favor. Mia, drawing on her own experiences with adversity, suggested a bold move, a press conference where they would confront the accusations head-on and expose the truth. As the details of the plan came together, Alex and Mia found themselves drawn closer than ever. Their partnership, once purely transactional, had evolved into something far more profound. Yet, even as they prepared to face the world together, the shadows of their pasts lingered, threatening to unravel everything they had fought to build. The press conference was set for the following week, and the anticipation was palpable. But on the eve of the event, another revelation emerged, one that would change everything. A sealed envelope arrived at the penthouse, containing a letter and a photograph that sent a chill through Alex and Mia. The letter was unsigned, but its message was clear. Someone knew the deepest secret of Alex's past, a truth he had buried long ago. And now, they were threatening to bring it to light. The photograph inside the envelope was a relic of Alex's past, a candid snapshot of a younger Alex with a man whose face Mia didn't recognize, but whose presence seemed to weigh heavily on Alex. The accompanying letter, its words clipped and direct, threatened to expose not just Alex's vulnerabilities, but something far more personal and damaging. "Morgan," it read, "you've played the game well, but everyone has skeletons. I suggest you reconsider your plans for tomorrow unless you want this to come to light." For the first time, Mia saw something in Alex she had never seen before: uncertainty. He stood at the window, the letter clutched in his hand, his jaw tight as he stared out at the city. "Who is he?" Mia asked gently, her voice cutting through the tense silence. Alex didn't respond immediately, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and guarded. "His name is Victor Hale. He was my mentor, and my biggest mistake." Alex turned to face her, his expression a mixture of regret and resolve. "Victor taught me everything I know about business," he explained. "But he wasn't just ruthless, he was corrupt. When I realized how far he was willing to go, I walked away, severed all ties. I thought I had buried that part of my life, but clearly I was wrong." Mia stepped closer, her hand resting on his arm. "Why would someone bring this up now?" she asked. Alex sighed. "Because they think it will destroy me. And they're not entirely wrong." The revelation cast a shadow over their plans for the press conference. As Alex and Mia sat with Daniel and Sophie the next morning, the atmosphere was tense. "We need to neutralize this before it becomes public," Daniel said, his tone decisive. "If this photograph gets out, it won't just raise questions. It will erode the trust you've built with your investors and partners." Alex nodded, but his mind was already racing with strategies. "We need to control the narrative," he said. "If they're going to bring up Victor, we'll address it on our terms." Mia, who had been listening intently, spoke up. "What if we make this a part of the press conference? Be honest about your past before they can use it against you." The suggestion hung in the air, daring and unorthodox. Sophie frowned. "That's a gamble," she said. "But it could work, if we spin it right." Alex looked at Mia, his eyes searching hers. "You really think this is the way?" he asked. Mia nodded. "I do. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that owning your story is the only way to take its power back." With the decision made, the team worked through the night, crafting a statement that would address both the recent attacks on Mia and the new threat against Alex. Elena joined the effort, her sharp instincts invaluable as they prepared for what was sure to be the most critical moment of Alex's career. "This isn't just damage control," she said. "It's a chance to show the world who you really are. Don't waste it." The morning of the press conference arrived, and the penthouse buzzed with activity. Mia stood in front of a mirror, adjusting the sleek black dress she had chosen for the occasion. Alex appeared behind her, his expression uncharacteristically soft. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. Mia turned to face him, her gaze steady. "Yes, I do," she replied. "We're in this together, remember?" When they arrived at the venue, the atmosphere was electric. Reporters and photographers swarmed the entrance, their voices a cacophony of questions and speculations. Alex and Mia walked hand in hand, their united front a deliberate statement. As they took their seats at the podium, the room fell silent, anticipation hanging heavy in the air. Alex began, his voice calm but firm. "Over the past few weeks, there have been attempts to discredit me and those I care about. Today, I want to address those attempts directly." He spoke of the accusations against Mia, his defense of her unwavering. Mia Carter is not defined by the mistakes of others or the lies that have been told about her. She is strong, talented, and deserves respect, not judgment. Then, with a pause that seemed to stretch forever, Alex addressed the photograph. "There's also been an attempt to use my past against me," he said. "Years ago, I worked closely with a man named Victor Hale. He was a mentor to me, but I later discovered his methods were not aligned with my principles. I made the decision to part ways with him, and I've spent every day since building a career I can be proud of. I won't let anyone take that away." The room erupted in questions, but Alex held firm, answering with a precision that left little room for doubt. Mia, too, spoke, her voice clear and passionate as she shared her own journey. Together, they turned the press conference into a powerful statement of resilience and integrity, deflecting the attacks and reclaiming their narrative. As the event concluded, the tension that had weighed on them for weeks began to lift. Back at the penthouse, Alex poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to Mia. "You were incredible," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. Mia smiled, her relief evident. "So were you," she replied. For the first time in weeks, they allowed themselves a moment of peace, the storm behind them, at least for now. The fallout from the press conference rippled across the media landscape. For a moment, Alex and Mia appeared to have regained control of the narrative. Public sentiment softened as the truth behind the accusations emerged, and even some of Alex's harshest critics grudgingly acknowledged his candor. Yet, beneath the surface, the forces conspiring against them were regrouping, and the quiet before the storm was unnervingly fragile. The first sign of trouble came in the form of an encrypted email sent directly to Alex. Its contents were chilling: a detailed dossier on Victor Hale's activities, implicating Alex as a complicit partner. Attached was a demand: withdraw from his latest business venture, a multi-million-dollar deal that would solidify his dominance in the market, or risk the release of the information. "They're playing a dangerous game," Daniel said during an emergency meeting at the penthouse. "Whoever is behind this isn't just after your reputation anymore. They're after everything." As Alex and his team pored over the dossier, it became clear that the documents were expertly forged. Still, the precision of the fabrications and the timing of their release were enough to pose a serious threat. "If this gets out," Daniel warned, "even a whisper of doubt could destroy you." Alex's jaw tightened as he processed the implications. "Then we make sure it doesn't," he said. His voice was calm, but the fire in his eyes spoke volumes. Mia watched the exchange in silence, her mind racing. She had grown accustomed to the high-stakes maneuvering of Alex's world, but this attack felt different, more personal, more dangerous. That evening, as Alex prepared for yet another round of strategy meetings, she approached him with a quiet determination. "You can't keep fighting this alone," she said. Alex looked at her, his expression softening. "I'm not alone," he replied. "I have you." Those words gave Mia the courage to take a risk of her own. While Alex and Daniel worked to neutralize the immediate threat, Mia reached out to Sophie with an idea. "We need to find out who's behind this," she said. Sophie, ever pragmatic, raised an eyebrow. "And how do you propose we do that?" Mia hesitated before replying. "By going straight to the source." The plan was simple but risky. Arrange a meeting with Victor Hale. If anyone could shed light on the attacks, it was him. Sophie was skeptical but agreed to help. Within hours, she had secured a location and a time, leaving Mia with little more than her instincts and determination. When she informed Alex of her decision, His reaction was immediate. Absolutely not, he said, his tone firm. It's too dangerous. Mia refused to back down. This is about more than just you, Alex, she said. It's about us. If we don't get ahead of this, we'll spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. Her words struck a chord, and after a long silence, Alex relented. If you're going, then I'm going with you, he said. There was no room for negotiation. The meeting took place in a dimly lit restaurant on the outskirts of the city. Victor Hale arrived precisely on time, his presence as commanding as Alex had described. His sharp features and calculating gaze gave him the air of a man who thrived on power and manipulation. Alex, he said smoothly, his voice dripping with feigned warmth. It's been too long. The conversation began with pleasantries, but it quickly turned to the matter at hand. Someone's using your name to come after me, Alex said, his tone steely. Victor smirked. And you think I'm behind it? He asked, feigning offense. You give me too much credit. Mia, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. If it's not you, then who is it? She asked. Victor's gaze shifted to her, his expression calculating. Ah, the fiancée, he said. You've caused quite a stir. The exchange continued, each word a battle for leverage. Victor denied involvement, but his evasiveness only deepened their suspicions. Finally, as the tension reached its peak, Victor dropped a bombshell. You're looking in the wrong direction, he said, his smirk widening. The enemy isn't me. It's someone much closer than you realize. Victor's cryptic warning sent a chill through Mia and Alex as they left the meeting. Back at the penthouse, they replayed his words, their implications cutting deeper with every repetition. Closer than you realize, Mia murmured, her mind racing. She thought of everyone they had trusted, Daniel, Sophie, even Grace. The pieces of the puzzle refused to fit, leaving them grasping for answers. Late that night, as Mia sat alone in the living room, a thought struck her with sudden clarity. She retrieved the envelope containing the photograph of Victor and Alex, examining it closely. Her heart raced as she noticed a detail she had missed before. A faint watermark on the corner of the paper. It was the logo of a printing company connected to Morgan Enterprises. She rushed to Alex, who was reviewing security logs in his office. I think I found something, she said, her voice urgent. Together, they traced the watermark to an internal department within Alex's company, a department headed by none other than Harrison Wells. The realization hit like a thunderclap. It was him all along, Alex said, his voice low and dangerous. The truth was finally within their grasp, but it came with a heavy cost. Harrison, once a trusted ally, had orchestrated the attacks, exploiting Alex's trust and resources to carry out his vendetta. The betrayal cut deeper than Alex could have imagined, but it also galvanized him. He thought he could break us, Alex said, his gaze meeting Mia's. He underestimated what we're capable of. The air was electric with tension as Alex and Mia arrived at Morgan Enterprises late that night, their plan meticulously laid out but fraught with risks. Harrison Wells, the man who had woven a web of betrayal and manipulation around them, was still in his office, unaware that his machinations were unraveling. Alex's jaw was set in a hard line, his determination palpable. Mia, walking beside him, felt a surge of resolve. This was their fight, and they would face it together. The confrontation unfolded in Alex's private boardroom, a space that had witnessed countless high-stakes negotiations, but never a moment as personal as this. Harrison entered with his usual air of confidence, his polished demeanor intact. Alex, he began smoothly, but his voice faltered when he saw Mia standing beside him. Her presence threw him off balance, a crack in his otherwise impenetrable facade. Alex wasted no time. We know it was you, Harrison, he said, his voice cold and precise. He tossed the envelope containing the forged documents onto the table between them, using my name, my resources, and my trust to undermine everything I've built. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Harrison's expression shifted, a flicker of fear crossing his features before he recovered. I have no idea what you're talking about, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Mia stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. The watermark on this photograph ties it directly to your department, she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "We have proof, Harrison. Denying it won't save you." Harrison's composure crumbled further, his confidence giving way to anger. "You don't understand," he spat, his tone venomous. "I gave years of my life to this company, to you, Alex. And what did I get in return? Nothing. Watching you rise while I was left in your shadow, I couldn't take it anymore." The confession was both a vindication and a betrayal. For Alex, it was a reminder of the cost of ambition, of the cracks in the foundation of even the most carefully constructed empires. But there was no time for sentimentality. "You'll resign," Alex said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Quietly. And you'll hand over everything you've stolen, every document, every contact, every secret you've hoarded. If you don't, I'll make sure you face criminal charges." Harrison's shoulders sagged in defeat. He knew he was cornered. As Harrison left the building, escorted by security, Alex and Mia sat in the now-empty boardroom, the adrenaline of the confrontation giving way to exhaustion. "It's over," Mia said, her voice a mixture of relief and disbelief. Alex leaned back in his chair, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "Because of you," he said. "You saw what I couldn't. You trusted me when I couldn't even trust myself." Their victory was bittersweet, but it marked a turning point. Over the following weeks, Alex and Mia worked tirelessly to rebuild. The press conference and subsequent revelations had shifted public sentiment in their favor, and Harrison's removal from Morgan Enterprises was handled quietly but decisively. Investors, once wary, began to rally behind Alex again, their confidence restored. And for Mia, the storm that had haunted her for years began to lift as her talent and integrity were finally recognized. Grace Morgan, who had observed the entire ordeal from a distance, surprised them one afternoon with an uncharacteristic gesture. She invited Mia to lunch, a move that Alex regarded with cautious optimism. Over the meal, Grace offered a grudging apology. "I misjudged you," she said simply, "but you've shown strength and resilience I didn't expect. Alex is better with you by his side." The words, though understated, carried a weight that Mia couldn't ignore. Grace's approval, once a distant impossibility, now felt like a small but significant victory. As the weeks turned into months, Alex and Mia began to chart a new course, not just for their public lives but for their personal relationship. The arrangement that had once been born out of necessity had evolved into something genuine, something neither of them had anticipated, but both were willing to fight for. They learned to navigate the complexities of trust and vulnerability, building a partnership that was as formidable as it was tender. One evening, as they sat on the penthouse balcony, watching the city lights flicker below, Alex turned to Mia, his expression uncharacteristically unguarded. "I've spent my life chasing control," he said. "But with you, I've realized something. Control isn't what matters. It's connection. And I don't want to lose that." Mia smiled, her heart full as she reached for his hand. "You won't," she said simply. Their journey had been marked by trials and revelations, by betrayals and triumphs. But as they looked toward the future, they did so with a sense of hope and determination. Together, they had faced the storm, and together, they would step into whatever came next, their bond unshakable, their love a testament to the power of redemption and resilience. I sincerely hope you enjoyed the story. I'm sure the next video appearing on your screen will also move you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. A big kiss and see you in the next story.